Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this online admissions event at St Helens and St Catherine. It's wonderful to know that there are so many of you out there. There's not so many of us in here, but we look forward to sharing some thoughts about the process of admissions for 11 plus, our Year 7 entry, and also a little bit about the experience of joining the school, and then something beyond that, the journey through our school and what our students can experience and can look forward to in all that we do. Now, obviously, we're delighted that the sort of online events that the pandemic has forced on us in the last couple of years continue to be a really efficient way of families engaging with us and finding out a little bit more. But I will put forward now the first of many pleas that if anything you hear this evening excites you or interests you and wants to find out more, then please do contact our admissions department, come and visit us, because as I say on so many occasions, there is a certain amount of choosing a school which is up here, it's about your head, but I think fundamentally making that final decision is about your heart, and that feeling that you get from being in a place, having a sense of your daughter in these surroundings, picking up the atmosphere that you will sense on the visit. So please do come and see us and find out a little bit more. Now, as head of the school, it's a wonderful privilege to be able to share my huge enthusiasm for St Helens and St Catherine, but I am delighted that I am joined this afternoon by experts in the field of Year 7 and lower school and thinking about that experience of joining St Helens. So if I can introduce my fellow panel members, first of all to my immediate left here to Anna, who is now a long way through that journey and is a member of our lower sixth. And if any of you are thinking, that's interesting headgear, Anna obviously has a quirky sense of style. I'm delighted to say that Anna is not only a member of our prefect body, hence the rota, but also one of our deputy head girls. So she's got a fantastic perspective on that journey through the school. And then we move to Mrs. Kay Taylor, who is head of lower school. So our lower school at St Helens is Year 7 and Year 8. And Mrs. Taylor takes the students through those two early years of a senior school. And she'll say a little bit more about her work a little bit later on. And then I'm delighted to say that we have three members of Year 8 who are going to share thoughts and tidbits about various experiences they've had. So from my side through, Flavia and Evie and Imi are going to join with me answering some questions and picking up some of the questions that we've already received. And please do use the chat function to send through any more questions. And by the wonders of modern technology, which means actually me scrambling around and trying to squint and look at my phone screen, we'll try and address any that come through during our conversations this afternoon. So we thought that rather than just explode in an energetic hurrah for St Helens, and I should point out that Evie is enormously disappointed that we don't have a studio set up with Good Afternoon St Helens, because I think she's got aspirations to be, you know, Phil and Evie in the morning. But anyway, we're trying to get some structure to help you through this journey from having some thoughts about why St Helens, why not St Helens, why choose St Helens, a little bit about the admissions process, induction, and then settling in. So we'll follow that journey through and try and make that process a little bit clearer. So I'm going to start off with asking you to reach back into your memory. Why did you look at and ultimately choose St Helens, Anna?
Well, I remember talking to my parents about which school I wanted to go to at the end of Year 6, and we decided it had to fill two criteria of pushing me academically but also supporting me through that academic process. Then I came on 3 taster days three tours around the school, so open days, from Year 3 upwards. So I'd kind of set my heart on it because the first open day, something just clicked, the atmosphere, as you were saying, just felt right. So now I'm here.
Fantastic. And you were at a very small school, weren't you?
Yes, we had 8 people in Year 6, and yes, I was the only person that came to St Helens.
Fine. So we'll pick up that, because I know that's sometimes a query that comes up at making that change from a school that might feel really different to a community of students that's 720 strong, making that change, and how does that work? So we might come back to that. I'm going to slightly cheekily say, because Mrs. Taylor, you're a member of staff, you've also been a parent of St Helens. Why did you choose St Helens for your... is that unfair?
Goodness. Again, I think I wasn't at that point a pastoral head, and I was just absolutely, well, bowled over by the girls that I taught.
Yeah.
And my daughter, I must have come home absolutely gushing about being a teacher at the school, and my daughter came and had a look round in year 5 and absolutely just would not stop asking me to come to, she wanted to come to, my school, and came in year 6.
Fantastic.
And
now she's
really
all
very,
grown
very
up.
happy.
And she's now all grown up and doing wonderful things.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, a bit more recent. So, Flavia, what made you have a think about St Helens?
With me, I was actually planning on coming to St Helens for sixth form, since I went to a primary school that also had a secondary school. And I remember one of my friends saying that she was planning on joining the secondary. And I was thinking, well, since I've heard of St Helens, I might as well go and try out for year 7. I remember coming to one of the open days, and as Anna said, literally clicking. And yeah, I came in for my exam and also my taste day, and it was an amazing experience.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Now, Evie, you had quite an unusual experience, didn't you? Because you joined us quite suddenly in the middle of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I didn't know that I lived in Cheltenham, which is like nowhere near Abingdon or Oxford. So I thought I was staying there, but then we moved. So we chose this school because my dad looked at it and said it had like really good academic grades, and it had a lot of other things like sports and drama and lots of other things to like offer. So I took the entrance exam and I got in, and good, because that's the only school I took the entrance. So yeah, so I got in, and then we moved. So I had to join like a term early in year 6. I was really, really excited to actually see people. Then it was online. So I had to do everything online, and I met all my friends online, but everyone was so nice to me online, so it was fun.
Yeah, but I think you did an amazing job, I have to say, because it was not a very easy set of circumstances for anybody to start school. So, and then a slightly different experience, because you came from a school with a group of friends. So tell us a little bit about the thinking, why you thought about St Helens, and then maybe let's move on to that idea of settling in when you know some people that come with you, but you kind of want to find out more about other people that are joining the year group.
Yeah, well, so at my old school, it was almost all the girls would choose, each year there'd be a particular school which a bunch of girls would go to. And the year I was going, it was St Helens. So a lot of my friends were going to St Helens. And when I came here, it was just so nice. Everyone was really nice. And like you said, all the facilities were really good. So when I came here, at first I was kind of feeling a bit like, oh, I don't really want a lot of friends because I want a fresh start. But it was actually really nice because it was just something some people I could relate to. But it was also good because I did move on from them and made new friends.
Yeah. And I think understandably, there is that sense of making a change of how will my daughter settle? What if she's the only person from her school? How do you manage that change? And in hearing these kind of various accounts, I hope we've indicated that behind these fantastic 4 students, there are so many stories of people making individual moves, people moving across the country and relocating, people making international moves, people making a move with a group of friends and navigating that, which can sometimes bring its own challenges. But there is a great deal of support in all that the girls do, and helping to navigate those relationships is a really integral part of all of the pastoral work we do. So you make a decision and you think, oh, okay, St Helens is kind of, and we'll keep this, I would ask you, because you guys had a slightly different, because you arrived in the pandemic and we were all in bubbles and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to ask Anna to sort of reach back again into your memory. Should we talk a little bit about the assessment process and how you found that? Because we've had a question in from somebody who's joining us this afternoon about the sort of student's eye view of how that works. Is it scary? Is it intimate? How does it work? How did you feel it went?
Well, obviously it was a little bit daunting, having this is the biggest exam I'd ever done, aside from SATs. But the entire, again, it was the atmosphere. We had prefects lining the walkway into our exam room. We had teachers sort of explaining all the rules for the testing, and then if we needed anything, we knew that people were there to help us. They weren't there to be mean. They were there wanting us to succeed, which was quite good at alleviating the stress levels. And then after the exam process, the taste day was just fantastic. I remember I had a lesson in Latin from Mr. Hodgkinson, who's left now, which is very sad, and kind of set me on the course of where I am now, because I'm looking around unis for classics all over the country.
So from taster day to university application, yeah. Fantastic, that's great. Now the taster days are set up really carefully, lots of work by Mrs. Taylor, and do you want to say a little bit about how they work and what the girls experience?
Yeah. The taster days are part of our whole sort of entrance kind of experience, really, and it is really important for the girls to come in and really experience, taste what our school is like, because as Anna said, she came to a few of the open days, but when you come into the school and just spend the day, have a normal working day with the rest of the school, I think it's really important. You get a real sense of whether you feel you want to be at this school and be part of St Helens. And we sort out a timetable for them, so we want to recreate a typical day in the life of year 7, really. So they have a timetable, they have a lovely varied sort of combination of lessons. They have lunch, so they have a school lunch. They have lunchtime where they can go and have a look at some clubs that are going on. They meet with Mrs. Dougal and have a chance to really talk about themselves and get to know Mrs. Dougal and the dog Teasel, who greets them in reception, and really just see a range of teachers teaching them on that day, and just feel whether, whether this is the school for them. Absolutely. It's a typical day really for them.
And it means that also then when we get to those assessments in January, and we'll go through some of the logistics and the dates and the process a little bit later, there's a degree of familiarity, because one of the things we're really keen to manage in the assessment process, we don't want to assess nerves. We want to find out about this really interesting girl and her potential. And I think sometimes there can be these kind of myths, layers upon layers of myths about admissions processes, and we try and do everything to demystify it, to sort of remove the anxiety, to make it fun. So actually, I think one of the strongest memories often of the assessment days is boaters and the cookies. And the fact there is some English and some maths in there is kind of by the by. The interviews with me, 10 minutes, I keep notes, and I have years worth of notes, which I can then spring on students. Do you remember? And all the things we talked about. So I remember talking to you about your 11 cousins.
Yeah.
Yes. And we talked about lots of sports and all sorts of things. And we put the world to right, didn't we?
Yeah.
We absolutely did. And I have these wonderful memories. And it's just so nice to get a sense of who this person is. And I find out all sorts of fascinating information about the families and awful brothers and mysterious jobs and all of these things. So we really want to get to know the girls. Now, look, admissions is a snapshot, inevitably, but we work as hard as we possibly can to kind of widen the lens. And some people say, well, what are you looking for? And I kind of answer, I don't think I know. But I think what we're looking for is someone that is going to have that, let's use it, but a match between how things work here and the busyness and the opportunity and the pace of things. And also, as Anna said, to make the most of all the support that is on offer. This is not a place that, has casualties. There's an awful lot of support, but we're looking for somebody that we feel all of that's going to come together and that we're going to turn out to be the best school for that particular individual girl. So trying to find that element out and try and find as much out, the taste days are fantastic for that. I love my 10 to 12 minutes with the students, finding all these things out. The data that we get from the assessments, of course, really, really important. We get some great references from some schools. We struggle to get a box ticked from other schools. So we can't load that too much, but we're trying to find out. Parents, you'll get a chance to tell us a little bit about what makes your daughter tick, all of the things that she gets excited about, so that I can explore them maybe in the interview, but also that we can begin to understand that, in any school week, there are going to be some real highs and ups and excitements, and there are going to be moments where it's all a bit more of a, So where's that confidence going to come from? Where are those energy boosts going to come from? Perhaps in their extracurricular life. We love to hear about their sport, music, drama, helping out the local community, love of reading, all sorts of things, crafting, whatever it might be, so that we can open that lens to have that sense of whether we are that right school. So please be assured we're not operating off these we don't have this magic pass mark or anything like that. We're tracking that assessment data, looking at papers. We have all the papers in an epically long meeting to understand, okay, so what does that percentage actually mean? Because it can mean lots of different things. 52% can mean a whole heap of things. It can mean I've never covered that, because I've come from a really different place, or it could mean that actually, there's some work to do here and we might be a bit worried about whether we're that right school. So we look really carefully at the information that we've got. So, and then people arrive and it's fantastic and they're here, hurrah! And then we're in person eventually as well. And I think it's fair to say that again, Anna's had a more ordinary experience all the way through than you guys have, because we went into bubbles, and Imi has claimed to be the only person that that adhered to every single COVID rule earlier. So I would say you did, obviously. Okay.
No, it was just that some people came into the dress code was like no brands, no Nike or Adidas.
No, we didn't want any of that
just
nonsense.
Like plain.
Which I did.
Which we all did. We all did.
Not really.
But then I did.
It's fine. The pandemic is passing. We move on. We're back to the ordinary. Back in uniform. You see how much more sensible uniform is. If you ever want an argument of why uniform, that's it. So let's talk about clubs, societies, houses. Do you want to explain the house system a bit to our guests?
Yeah. So in years, I don't know if it starts in year 7 or...
Yes. Well, it starts all the way through, actually, but yes, in year 7.
When you join, you get put in a house. There's Hayward, Duffield, Patterson and Benedict. And the good thing about houses is they're people from year 7 up to 6th form. So, and it's a good time. Everyone comes together. You might do games. You talk about things. There's the house breakfast where you get to have chocolate, which is my favourite. But and there's also lots of house competitions, so sport, more academic things. But it's basically a good way to bring kind of the parts of the school together. Because
it's really nice. And I think, again, one of the things we love is the relationships between the year groups, because our sixth form and our older students are fantastic role models. And actually, every study tells us that the influence of those positive role models is hugely influential. And it becomes this kind of really virtuous cycle of celebrating a set of values. And students, senior students, take that role very seriously. Do you want to look at it from the other end of things and the kind of, as a sixth former, your involvement with the younger years?
Yes, so I've been running a dance class for the junior department since the beginning of the year. It was initially just until Christmas, but then they asked for an extension, and so we're still going. It's great fun, but it's really nice to see people who are in the same place you were not too long ago, and it's nice to be able to give them the advice that you wish that you'd been given, and it's nice to sort of help guide them in a way you know that will be a good path. I think it's nice to see like the different parts of the school interacting with each other, because again, like you said, it's the role models, and it's quite an honour to be a role model in that sense. And so it's nice to take on that kind of leadership-ish role.
Yeah. And we all talk a lot about community at St Helens, and it is really important to us. And I mentioned it again in assembly this morning, that I think, it's something you can quite easily take for granted or pay lip service to, actually. And community, you can't just rely on this sort of sense. I think that we're all part of St Helens, Catherine. It needs to be more active than that. And that interrelationship between the year groups is part of it. The celebration of particular events is part of it. St Kate's Day, which is kind of Flavia, do you want to tell everyone what St Kate's Day is and its sort of strange rituals?
So St Kate's Day is a celebration of St Catherine, and I can't express how many events go on. So if you start with sports, you've got the Abingdon versus St Helens lacrosse game.
Yeah, which we always win. I just want to put that in. We always beat Abingdon at lacrosse on St Kate's Day.
You've got stalls that go on at lunchtime. You've got house events, as Amy was talking about. And it's such an inclusive day where everyone comes together and just has so much fun as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that, and then on the last day of the school year, you'll find us all doing the hokey cokey in the quad, which I'm going to unhelpfully say, gesticulate is just out there. And if you come and visit us, or perhaps you've been already, you'll see that. And in many ways, I think our campus, which is very beautiful, and students have alluded to the facilities, we're very conscious of how beautiful our campus is, but it also speaks to this sense of community. We create places where people can come together. We think we're planning for an event to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and guess what? That's going to be a kind of picnic lunch in the quad where everybody comes together. So, as I said, the campus tells that story of the values that we hold dear. We're delighted about the fact that if you drive anywhere near the OX14 postcode at the moment, you will probably see a large crane. That's ours. And it's building a very beautiful new sixth form centre, which fortunately will just squeak into use for you'll get some time, a few. But again, what that's done is create a second rear quad, and we want very much to continue to communicate that fact that it's not only beautiful spaces to learn and for recreation and to be inspired, but it's also that outdoor space and telling a story of how important it is, yes, to celebrate individuality in all its marvellous quirky forms, but also the power of a community coming together and understanding the importance of that sense of belonging. I often say to parents, only today I was talking to prospective parents, this is a fractured old society, this is a fractured old world. So actually belonging to something really substantial like this community at St Helens has ever more power. And it's not some kind of like, oh, aren't you lucky all to be here? No, we're lucky to work with these amazing people. But together, understanding what we can do for each other and for others beyond this campus is a really important part of the kind of energy of this particular place. So it really matters to us. Now, one of the many things we can also celebrate here is that as the students join, is the kind of the whole induction process. And I wonder, Mrs. Taylor, could you talk a little bit about how we kind of go through settling the girls in, just those early weeks and leading up to the at-home and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is that in June, so once they've got their places, and the first thing we do is an induction day, and the girls come back in to school for a whole day. They meet their new form tutor, they meet their new form, so they start to get to know a few people, and basically it's a good fun day. We do lots of getting to know you, team building exercises. They meet the prefect team. Our prefects basically run most of the games and the fun events for that day. But it is just a chance for them to come in after they've had an entrance exam where they might have felt very anxious and nervous, Now they walk in, and it's amazing to watch them walk in, huge smiles on their faces, great sense of relief from parents as well. So it's great to meet parents in a different light straight away. From that moment onwards, there was that moment of, this school is my school, and I am part of this school. And I think it's a really good time to do that in June, because then we've got the summer holidays. We encourage the girls to make contact with some of their form mates, so they might see each other over the summer holidays, which is great. It also stops that feeling of perhaps concern, anxiety before starting a new school, and then we meet them again for another induction afternoon before the whole of the school comes back. So they have a sense of just feeling their own identity and their own place in the school before everybody returns to school. And then, of course, it's a real process through the whole year, from various activities and events that we do over at Church Farm, some team building, trying to do more social events with them, and then we do our residential, which normally takes place in March. We always think it's a really good time, halfway through the year, really good point in the year, when for some of them, they're still finding their way, and that's perfectly natural, halfway through the year, still finding their friendships, and we often find the residential helps to give as well the girls a sense of a year identity. It's not to kind of spread out from their forms and have confidence to meet other people in the year group, and that continues through our year 7.
And I mentioned the fact that form tutors typically move through lower school with the girls through 7 into 8, so they kind of really get to know their charges. And Imi, I'm going to pick on you again. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that works? And when we spoke the other day, you said that it's quite nice because you feel that sense of moving from the form to more of a sense of a year group that Mrs. Taylor's just mentioned, sort of people all over the place that you kind of get on with.
Yeah, so I feel like in year 7 it's quite closed, especially to do with that when we had it because of the bubbles.
Yeah.
And it feels like stick to your form, like they're the people, and you're only really getting to know them. But then in year 8, then the forms start to, especially as we choose more options, the form gets split into 3. Each form gets split into 3, and they kind of go off into groups. So then you meet other people, and the whole year kind of comes together a bit. And there are lots of like events and trips that we go on. So we've got a couple coming up, and they're also really nice because you go with the whole year, and there's like wooden ways where you get split up into meet other people. But yeah, and then I think in year 9 it will probably be even more like that.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what lessons are like, and also extracurricular activities, because I know there's lots of interest out there. You'll have very busy daughters who might well be doing lots of things already, or maybe you've got someone who can't quite get to do the things she wants to do and is looking for a senior school that will allow her to develop something that at the moment seems you have to drive all around maybe the county or just not get to do it. And we're very aware that we are always ambitious to offer as many different extracurricular opportunities as possible. So, Ely, you're a busy person. Do you want to talk about some of the kind of things you've got involved with and some of what your friends have got involved with clubs and things?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different clubs, and they run at lunch times and after school. So normally, like sport, there'd be a netball lunchtime club and a netball after school club. So if you can't do it at lunch, do it after school, you can do it at school. So that's really helpful. And so you have to be kind of picky of what clubs you want to do. If you want to waste your lunchtime, don't waste it, you know. So there's lots of sports clubs like netball, cricket, lacrosse, all that. And then there's music clubs like orchestra, like musical theatre club. I don't go to that, but I know people who do. Then there's language clubs like Italian and sign language. There's drama clubs. There's academic clubs like press club, friends go to press club. There's random clubs like Minecraft club. I don't go to Minecraft Club, but I've heard people do go to Minecraft.
I'm sure the deputy head would be delighted to hear his club described as a random club.
I was going to say fun.
Very popular. Fun, absolutely. You watch. Those are the people that will make billions in the future. I tell you, watch the Minecraft Club anyway.
And like cooking clubs, like garden to table club.
Yeah.
And the last one I have is there's a DT club. I'm not sure if people go to DT.
I promise you they do.
That's popular.
Otherwise, be Mr. Webb sitting on his own in the DT. It would never happen. We can't move for people doing DT. And just to say, to pick up on that, I mean, it's a really busy, and I guess sometimes, I go back to that question, what are you looking for? And I mentioned the idea of kind of grabbing opportunities. Well, busy people, I think we like people that like being busy flourish here. And we have lots of students that are getting involved in all sorts of things we aim to avoid, and I think we do avoid that kind of like tribal thing that can happen of you are the sporty people, you are the this kind of people. Do it all. Have a go at everything. So we provide as many opportunities as we can, and sometimes it's about being an elite performer. So we have musicians who make my jaw drop and make me feel, no matter anybody else, they're just really untalented. And then we have other performances where people are embarking on a journey and we're waiting to see if that next note gets landed. And it does, and everybody can breathe a sigh of relief, and it's wonderful because it's the beginning of something, and it's about building confidence. We have some of our athletes who are involved with England and other international pathways, and we also just have people who will slog around 400 metres at sports day because they want to get a point for their house and just have a go. Involved in all sorts of teams. We run multiples of netball teams during that season, where we have A, B, C, D. Sometimes it's just simply a challenge to find people that want to play us. Cricket is absolutely booming here, which is fantastic. It's probably the single biggest growth sport. We've had a question that came through about football and whether we do football. Yes, we do. Each year group has a team up to year 10, and then we have a senior team, and that again is another area that continues to grow. Touch rugby, hockey, swimming, and we've had another question, gymnastics and dance, and Anna's already alluded to a dance club that you run, but generally it's a very busy programme for those people involved in gym and dance.
Yes, it is. We have a show every year called the Gym and Dance Show. There's a different theme depending on the year, and honestly, it's some of the highlights of my time at this school. The gym group, which again, anybody can join, any ability, it's just about having fun. They'll put on this huge number every year, and that's always amazing to watch, even when you're not in it. But I remember being a part of that. We did it to Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. That was phenomenal. And dance, as I've got older, We've now got a contemporary dance team for seniors, and then a jazz dance team for year 8 upwards, 9 upwards. 8, yes. And there are 2 sections of that. We have one big jazz team, and then more recently a smaller contemporary jazz team, year 9. We've just got through to nationals, so I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So really, we're trying to kind of create an environment where everybody can get involved. And we have drama productions. You're in the lower school production?
Yes.
Multiple parts?
Yes, I have 3.
3 parts, including?
Right, so I'm the Cheshire Cat because it's Alice in Wonderland. I'm an oyster and a blade of grass.
And I'm particularly excited about seeing your performance as a blade of grass, I have to say.
It's not just me, it's like 4.
Okay, but you'll be shining forth as a blade of grass, I'm so sure about it. But yeah, and then for drama again, huge numbers of opportunities. So we have the big annual productions for each of the sections of the school, lower school, juniors we start with, then lower school, middle school, and then the senior production. There are actually 3 senior productions new this year, and hopefully we're planning to continue it. It's a year 11 production, and then 2 essentially sixth form productions that are joint with Abingdon School. And they are just astonishing in their quality, absolutely wonderful. We take it in turns, one of us to do the straight play, one of us to do the musical. So it's a great opportunity to collaborate between the 2 schools. And we also have opportunities for people whose natural home is not on stage, but backstage. We have a whole team of people, not only helping out making things, but actually really learning the craft of putting on performances, learning about lighting and sound. So there's all sorts of avenues, and we have a number of students actually who've left us to go on and study stage management and that kind of, and lighting design, all of those kind of things, as well as people that have gone on to studying the kind of performance. So lots and lots of sort of areas to develop, including, as I say, a really good collection of random clubs, which I think we should have as a heading in the next Beyond brochure. If you want to find out more, there's loads on the website, Beyond brochures there, and you can kind of get a sense of all of the things that go on. Now, we've kind of skirted around this, but I think probably we're going to, very quickly, we need to move to some questions. Lessons, because just occasionally, when we're not being blades of grass and doing house activities, lessons. So, Flavia, it falls to you now to try and capture something of the nature of lessons at St Helens.
So I'd say, I can't actually express how inclusive they are. When you're in a lesson, it's not just information being thrown at you, you really connect with the teachers. And I'd say the work isn't just you, it's not always independent work, you're working with partners or groups or even the whole class. And you learn so many things, and from doing practicals or even watching the teacher do practicals. They're so connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had the great fortune, so I'm just checking my questions as they come in now. This is the technical bit. I had the great fortune of happening to join your English and history lessons. And I think that's it. We have... The students here, there's an unself-conscious love of learning. It's kind of cool to care. It's cool to put your hand up, and that runs all the way through. You know, sort of, we don't have a kind of any sense of that kind of whatever culture. There is a thrill about learning stuff, and that is incredibly empowering for students, because I think one of the saddest things I hear in that kind of, is that corrosive possibility of the eye roll that accompanies that girl who wants to learn, who wants to find out more, who just enjoys it, just enjoys finding out stuff, because stuff is pretty cool, right? And that academic liberation that comes with being in an environment, yes, it's something about the relationship between teachers and students, but students have a massive part to play in this. And we always notice that when, for example, we're about to say kind of temporary farewell to year 11 as they go on study leave. And we're always really proud of the fact that even though they're not with us, we know that they're sustaining each other through kind of some really good study habits. Not daft, kind of stressy kind of, but just, should we meet up and talk about this? Should we have a Teams call? Should we work together on this? Should we do our revision together? Because it's okay to be aspirational. It's okay to care. You haven't got that kind of movement that's pulling away, because there's always an alternative, and as social horizons expand, there are more opportunities and more reasons, perhaps sometimes not to work. But there is, isn't it? There's that kind of general sense of, it's quite cool to get stuck in.
It was one of the main things that struck me when I joined the school, was the difference between my primary school and, well, in terms of like answering a question. In my primary school, it was more of like a, oh no, we're going to sit back and we're not going to get involved because we want to look cool and stuff. The moment you join this school, it somehow becomes a bit of a competition with your friend who can answer the most questions, which was a very, very freeing experience for someone who always wanted to ask those questions. So yeah, it's again, like you said, it's that connection with teachers, and some of the most passionate people on the planet.
Yeah, they are.
Yes, just...
yes,
yeah,
they are, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I, you know, we're going to infuse for hours on St Helens. Sometimes I think my colleagues think they kind of get me out of the cupboard, wipe me up, and off I go. But actually, you need to know that there's some kind of secondary sort of third party, let's say, endorsement of that. And please do, I'd encourage you, go on the website, find out about it, but read our inspection report, you know, because actually what was so wonderful about that experience is all the things we celebrate here, and the business about these amazing teachers and the kind of their compassion and their desire to make everybody want to study their subject. You know, it was captured. It was really great when the inspectors kind of understood that and endorsed that sense. And that's when, you know, magical things happen. And I'm very struck when I, you know, attend heads of department meetings and departments, that there is that ongoing commitment to how one can develop the craft of teaching. Nothing's ever static here. We're not a school that feels anything's finished. you're always refining process. You're always thinking, how else can we do this? The world is a volatile place. So how are we making sure that everything we do here is going to be ready to support Anna, who's going to be getting ready to leave us in just over a year, amazingly, and these guys who are just a little bit further down the track. The world will be really different just from there to there. So how are we continuing to refine and develop things to respond to that? So please do have a read of that inspection report. It's not the most thrillingly presented thing, but the words, we're really proud of that, and it's an indication, I think, of how much this buzz of learning means. All of the departments enrich the learning through trips and speakers and all sorts of sort of different opportunities. And of course, they grow as the students develop through the subject. And so eventually we move through to the landscape of, the students have alluded to it, but we move into kind of history trips and year group trips to the battlefields in year 9, so that's coming up for you guys next year. We have language study visits and exchanges that we do jointly with Abingdon. We've had in the past, again, pandemic has interrupted so much, hasn't it? Trips to Washington for the politics groups, Bank of England, economics, we go to natural history museums and zoos and art galleries, and it goes on. The huge numbers of ways of enriching learning, which of course is an incredibly important part of the journey to mastering a subject, but also more fundamentally loving a subject, and taking that then further. And again, that idea of kind of lighting a flame in a subject and then following through to university. Now I'm going to turn our attention to some questions that have come through. So we'll dance around a little bit in here with different topics, but I'm kind of keen to make sure that everybody feels that we've addressed things. So, and I'll tick off a few that can have fairly quick answers. So we've got a question that came in about homework, and I could wave a document here, which is that, but do you want to just explain a little bit about the homework timetable and how it's kind of predictable and managed?
We do have a homework timetable, which is important, I think, for the girls to know, what they're having and expecting to do each evening after school. We try to make sure that they have a range of subjects across the week, so 2 or 3 subjects an evening. We are very clear on the time expectation. So in year 7, they should be spending 20 to 30 minutes, and year 8, 30 to 40 minutes. And we do try to check on that because, as we've already said, our girls are very, are very keen to do their best, and will take longer. And so we try to kind of balance that, because we know that they have activities and extracurricular clubs and activities after school, and we want them to be able to enjoy those activities as well. So we kind of try and keep that balance, keep a dialogue going with the girls as well, as to when it gets busy and their lives get busy, and when perhaps tests come up. So we try to make it a dialogue between the teachers, between me, so that they feel that they can manage their time. I think that's the main thing. It's kind of just making sure that it's not that they try and work to a time limit, because that is all very good practice.
And there's a day school. We want students to be able to do that, but also do all the things locally that people are involved with, sports clubs and all sorts of things out of school, guides, stage, and all sorts of things that people do. So I think we want to kind of keep that balance. And I think also it's fair to say that sometimes some of you have older students that are already embarked on senior school, but something does change. If you're not there yet, you might be a bit concerned about this change, that there can be kind of real intimacy, I think, the parent relationship with a junior or primary school, because you physically take your child into the room, and there is that kind of very great involvement. And sometimes there's a bit of a worry that you're going to put her on a bus and she's going to disappear, it's all going to feel distant, and then suddenly she's 14 and the only answer you're ever going to get is fine. And actually that doesn't happen too much, but we do a lot of work with parents. We celebrate with parents, we commiserate with parents, we support parents. And we see absolutely that we are in partnership, and that the relationship school, student, parent is that kind of golden triangle of kind of getting it right. You can get that in harmony. Even though sometimes I think that students think it's a bit of a conspiracy of adults, but I can be quite a fan of conspiracies of adults sometimes. But working together, and there's lots of opportunities both to celebrate your daughter, but also to just enjoy being part of the community yourselves. We have a lively parents association. We welcome parents to have fixtures and productions and all of those things. We do coffee catch-ups, and then we have those individual conversations. And we always love hearing good news. And Emily, my assistant's email inbox is full of lovely updates about what people are doing. And sometimes it's full of kind of the sad updates about pets that aren't so well, and family members that aren't well. Things are going tough. And we want to know that. We want to build that relationship, because then we can provide the kind of support that we're talking about. So lots of communication there. I've got the question is, how do you motivate the girls to do their best? Kind of, I hope we've sort of talked a little bit about that. There's something about the kind of intake, isn't it? Something about the atmosphere, the role models, the opportunities, the messages in assembly, the careers advice, an amazing alumni community that kind of really like getting stuck in and kind of staying involved with the current students and talking about their journeys through university and then on into their careers. So I hope you feel that we've kind of covered that idea of motivation. And sometimes it's a bit of a talk. Sometimes it is hard to kind of find that moment. It's February and it's dark and So it's about a community that talks a great deal and makes time to have those supportive conversations. Often form tutors and tutors, often Mrs. Taylor, or Mrs. Nash in middle school, or Mrs. Darcy in the sixth form, the school chaplaincy, the school nurses, school counsellors, me, a cuddle with Teasel the dog, whatever it is. It's sometimes about those kind of interactions that can just set a day back on its track. So we're there for all of that. Now, a question that comes up quite a lot is a little bit about our work with boys' schools and other schools. And there's also a question, does St Helens and St Catherine have any plans to go co-ed in the near future? No, absolutely not. So that's a nice quick answer. But we do delight in the fact, we are a great girls' school, and we're a great girls' single-sex school, not because we don't have boys, but because we can specialise in what we feel young girls and young women need, and we delight in that specialism. It's a clumsy analogy, but if you've got a tummy bug, you don't go and see an ear, nose and throat specialist, and I feel very strongly that the expertise and specialism that we can develop in how girls learn, how they thrive, how we can make preeminent girls and young women's sport, how we can tailor careers advice, how we can just grapple with the realities of these stereotypes that frustrate us all, but they're there. They're there. All of those things, we can deal with that. But equally, we're not in the middle of a forest. We're not behind a wall. We have a fantastic brother school, 10 minutes walk away. I know there's a parent out there that's got a boy at Abingdon, and he wants to know how much we collaborate, quite a lot. So I've mentioned senior productions. We have joint choral societies. We have some joint A-levels in the sixth form. And we have various activities. A lot of those academic societies that I mentioned are joint activities. So we have a literary society, politics, all of those kind of things. So there's that side of life. I've mentioned some of the trips that we share together. But there's also a development around not just working with Abingdon, but actually we're part of a partnership called OX14. That's all of the senior schools, or 6 of the senior schools in Abingdon working together. Radley, us, Abingdon, working with 3 state schools, so 2 in one multi-academy trust and 1 in another. Larkmead, which is literally over the road from St Helens, and then just further along Farringdon Road, Fitzharris and John Mason. And actually, we're incredibly excited about bringing young people together. And it's a perfect cue in briefly, because Anna, you are very involved in OX14. So do you want to just some of the activity that goes on with that?
So the most recent activity we've had is our climate conference, which is where representatives from across the schools and the entire partnership met together to talk to David Johnson, who is the MP for Wantage. We couldn't get Leila Moran in, but we got him, and it was really valuable to work as a group, sort of fostering those relationships between the local community towards something as important as climate change and things, and we're already trying to develop a sort of action plan that can be passed across all the schools, so we can really work as a cohesive unit for our local area, which is really all it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different avenues through that, OX14s, academic coaching, peer counselling, all of those things. The point, I suppose, ultimately is that, yes, of course, we want our students to feel comfortable getting to know the lads, working with the lads. That's all important and kind of a given. The joint bus service is, as I always call it, the twilight zone of our interaction with Abingdon. It's a kind of common room with seatbelts and monitoring. And we do tackle some issues. They come up. There are some things that kind of go a bit wonky sometimes.
Yeah, of course, there will always be issues that come up with interactions with men. This is a part of life. But then there are support groups and there are working groups in place for that, for when it happens. It isn't the sort of, oh, we just accept this happens. There's a real sense of wanting to improve and build upon what we already have in order to make student experience the best for students in both schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about.
So, I mean, so inevitably you're going to have those moments of learning and navigating the development of relationships and attitudes and exploring attitudes. That it's really, really important. And we're, again, very proud of the work we've done. Very powerful assemblies jointly between the schools. You've created podcasts that are available for younger students. So with some of the students at Abingdon. But there's also that piece about working with students from different backgrounds in different schools, because this world needs problem solvers and it needs people that are comfortable with working with a really kind of varied experiences and harnessing all of that talent. So I'm really excited about that OX14 partnership. So yes, it's about working with the lads, but it's about working with people in different schools and in different environments to tackle some of these challenges. So I hope that goes near to answering that question. And then I'm going to invite, actually, we're going to do a bit of a swap, if we don't mind. So Imi, you didn't know this was coming, but can you very sort of, without deafening everybody with the problem we have with our chairs, which we're not going to share with our guests, if you could creep off, and Mrs. Howard's going to take your seat, because she's got, unless you know all the dates with the admissions calendar, do you? No, that's fine. So if you swap, and then we'll just do that, and thank you very much, and I'm just going to pick up another couple of the questions that have come in while Jane takes her seat. So, class sizes, we've got a question about that. They really vary. They're biggest in the lower part of the school, so we can get to 25, 26, but that's okay, they work really, really well. And of course, the minute we get any optionality, those class sizes go down. In addition to that, subjects like math, a subject like math is set. So that actually we have a much smaller groupings of set. We can have 5 or 6 sets for maths. Similarly, we introduce sets in some of the core subjects, like English becomes 5 classes as you go through the school. And increasingly, as they go through the school, class sizes become, as I say, linked to the options that are chosen. So we've got A-level classes that are 2 and 3 students, but they do vary. But people don't get lost in the classes. I think that's the important thing to remember. And it's that kind of that number hasn't really shifted or changed, and it's the group sizes that kind of work really, really well for us. So class sizes, we've got about that. Diversity is a really important subject, and I think it's true to say that our student community is becoming more diverse as each year passes. Our local area is becoming more diverse, and we seek to create an environment where we can celebrate people's different heritages, to celebrate their identity, and to explore that. We have an equality, diversity and inclusion group, and we have all sorts of routes into exploring issues about identity. So it's a critical part of our sort of strategic development, and if your commitment is to allow every student to be the best version of herself, then that understanding of selfhood must be as diverse as all of those students that join us. So it looks very different in many different ways, from opportunities to talk and share, reflect, inviting former students to come back and talk about the challenge of sometimes navigating their school life and attitudes and experiences at home, and et cetera, et cetera. So we really aim to kind of celebrate different routes through and celebrate all those different versions of selfhood. So a critical part of who we are. Preparation. we're going to start moving on very much to admissions and the preparation. And don't feel guilty, whoever you are out there that doesn't want to become a demanding parent and tutor your child. No, don't. Don't tutor your child. There you go. That's my message about the preparation for the admissions test. Look, I mean, I know that I say that and then people do. Be reasonable, do it my way. We want to assess the girl who she is. Everything we do pastorally and academically is kind of predicated on getting that right. So if you stuff and cram this poor child through, so they're kind of teetering on the brink of stuff, but it's on a really short-term basis, and the whole process of admissions has become stressful and burdensome, and they can't do a club because you're making them do 5 extra whatever sessions a week. No school is worth that. And I love St Helens. Okay, it really isn't worth it. So what can you do? Celebrate the work they're doing. There isn't a school out there that isn't doing valuable work. Look at homework, go through homework with them, get us to talk through stuff. If there's really an area that's a bit of a worry for you, then, and that one-to-one support of a tutor can help, then play that out as a development piece for long term, not just about getting into school A or school B. It's far too pressurising and horrible. Reading. Oh, I'm an English teacher, really. I pretend to be a headmistress. And actually, reading will be the most powerful way of developing vocabulary, sentence structures, extending the possibilities of writing. So if you've got someone that's a bit of a reluctant reader, maybe work out with the school at home how you can kind of incorporate some reading and celebrating that. Talk about stuff around the table. I'm a great believer in that kind of preparation and making it a joyous and exciting process rather than cramming. Because whenever I interview girls, I always every year get people who've clearly been told by their parents what they think I want to hear. You have no idea, in the nicest possible way, what I want to hear. And I just want to hear about who your daughter is. And we always say to them, come and talk about a book. It really doesn't have to be War and Peace. I only read War and Peace for the first time a few years ago. I actually really liked it, turns out. But I don't want to hear about that from 11, 12-year-old. Let's talk about David Williams, or let's talk whatever they might be reading, because I'm much more interested in hearing about that. So we really want to see the real girl. So try and avoid that, but keep the conversations going. Right, Jane, do you want to come in and talk a little bit about dates, process, etc.?
Yes. So I think a lot of you that are watching, some of you are registered, some of you are still at the inquiry stage, and that's all completely fine. Please come and visit us whenever you want to. Just pick up the phone or email us. We'll accommodate a visit, which may or may not incorporate a chat with Mrs. Dougal as well, but we can arrange tours all the time. We've got open day coming up on the 1st of October, so further details will be emailed. As long as you're in touch with us and you're on our database, you will receive information about the open day, which will be on Saturday, the 1st of October. The registration deadline for 2023 entry is the 11th of November, Friday the 11th of November. So there will still be time after the open day to register. Some of you are registered already, and that's great, because during from October through to December, all of the students that are registered to take our assessment, they'll be invited to taster days, and there'll be numerous taster days between October and December. So those that are registered now may come to an earlier taster day. If you wanted to wait until after open day and register right on the deadline, there'll be taster days after that as well. So, but as was alluded to earlier on, the taster day is very much part of the admissions process. The long-awaited, much discussed date for the assessment is Saturday, the 14th of January. And again, once you're registered, you will automatically receive information about the assessment day. And decisions get made very quickly after that. So we'd aim to send letters out within a week. So you should get to know very, very quickly the outcome of your daughter's application. And the deadline for acceptance will be the 1st of March, which is usual. So, but all of these dates are now on our website. There'll be further information probably in a couple of weeks, which I know there was a question about, do we have past papers available? No, we don't. We write our own papers. But what we do give is information about what's included in those assessments. And we give quite a lot of information. There will be a booklet on the website appertaining to 2023 and the papers for that in due course. And the papers, they are written, the assessments are written, they're not online. They're written assessments in maths, English comprehension and creative writing, and there's no reasoning assessment. I think that covers some of the questions off as well.
And as I mentioned, there's no pass mark, so we don't look at particular CAT scores or any of that kind of standardised data. And we do some work when the girls arrive with us, but we're just interested in setting our tests and working that out. And there's always a question, I'll pick up very quickly, but I'm not going to end with this because I'm an English teacher, so I'm not going to end on a number. But typically, the sort of applicant to place ratio kind of wibbles race, it's basically 2 to 1 that we work to. So for those of you, if anyone's out there that's relocating from London, your shoulders can drop right now, because I know that's a very nice number compared to what you're used to. We typically have in the region of 75 places available. It's not an exact science, admissions, and I don't always get the numbers right, but Jane's fantastic at guiding me through. But essentially, we have an intake of about 75 students during our year sixes that move through automatically to create that year. And as I said, coming from myriad schools locally, but also nationally and internationally, and a really good split actually between independent and state school. Now, we're going to close our podcast. We're out at our broadcast. We're broadcasting now, aren't we? Absolutely. Our studio broadcast, and just to know that you're going to get a video. We're going to send you a little film. I think it'll come out on Friday. So SHSK Productions proudly present. And a couple of members of Year 7 have made Dora and Jasmine have been working very hard on this, and they've made a film, a day in the life really of Year 7, and we really look forward to sending that out to you and allowing your daughters to have a sense, and they'll guide you through some of their experiences. We hope you've given a flavour of life here. As I said earlier on, we couldn't be more proud of this place, and with these people to work with, and over there in the semi-darkness, why wouldn't we be amazingly proud and joyous? We're never done, we're never finished, we're always thinking, and it's one of the great privileges of my job that I get to see all of their different activities and interests and all of those quirks and bumps and triumphs and ups and downs, but also keep thinking and leading the team to think, how can we be even better? So if you want to be part of the conversation, if you want to find out more, if you want to talk very particularly about your very special person, please do take up our offer, come and talk. We'd love to see you here, but thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Bye-bye.